Joining us now, Nikki Haley, former U.S. ambassador to the UN and 116th governor of South Carolina, founder of Stand for America, and she has a new book out. If you want something done, ask a woman. I like it. And this is about really powerful women leaders throughout the world, throughout history, and some really great lessons. And of course, I love the Margaret Thatcher quote, and we see her now. Good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate it. Congrats on the book. And I have got to get some of your insight. You were there during the Trump administration. We've played a lot of your sound bites when you were there at the United Nations, putting some people properly back in their place. I just wanted to get your just top line thoughts on some of this that we're going to Venezuela, OPEC plus 2 million barrels a day. I mean, this is kind of a disaster and it seems purposeful.
Well, great to be with you, Dana. You know, it's the one thing she got right is, yes, this is historic in the way that he's depleted our reserves to the lowest number we've seen since the mid 80s. I mean, the idea that they are running around now chasing Venezuela to get oil shows how far we've fallen. We should be exporting as much liquefied natural gas as we can. He should be sitting down with the oil producers saying, what do you need from us? What do we need to do? I mean, you know, you look at, it was just 2 years ago we were energy independent. Yeah. And now we're basically, you know, I can't decide where I am on this. He says that he didn't go to Saudi Arabia to ask for oil. Okay, well, that's problem number one, because if you went there and you didn't have that conversation, that says that you weren't paying attention. And two, you did go there, but guess what? When you call him, you know, when you call him names and you ridicule him and, you know, just say we need to treat him as the international pariah he is, don't be shocked when they don't turn around and help you out.
Exactly. And when you turn around and lift up Iran, ask them to come to the table to discuss peace and refuse to condemn the Houthis. And this has been an ongoing problem. We were at such a great place talking with Nikki Haley. We were at such a great place with Saudi Arabia. And then now 2 years in, and it seems that we're back at this period of destabilization, but now on top of it is an energy crisis.
And they don't trust us. I mean, Saudi Arabia doesn't trust us. I mean, one, yes, you go and you ridicule them, but two, they see weakness. And when they see weakness, they're going to go with where the strength is. And they just don't feel like the strength is here. And quite honestly, I think that MBS was trying to teach Biden a lesson. And the one that was, you know, what we should all be paying attention to is who was the one that was lobbying OPEC besides us? It was Russia. So they ended up going and siding with Russia and gave Russia what they wanted. And now you'd think Biden would say, okay, maybe I need to reverse course. But instead, he's going to all the other countries that have, you know, dirty oil and not countries we want to be doing business with. He's going with them instead.
Yeah, we have such great clean extraction methods. That's such an untold story. We're talking with Nikki Haley, and I'm going to get into this book with you because I love the book. It's If You Want Something Done, Ask a Woman, and it's leadership lessons from bold women. We have some, and they always happen to be conservative, which is going to be a question I'm going to ask you. You brought up Russia and this whole, and I'm not going to dive into all of the conspiracy theories because we know what we know and we know what we don't, and what we don't know is a lot. But that Nord Stream pipeline, or Nordstrom if you're Corinne Jean-Pierre, the explosion that has basically taken that pipeline offline, this is just really curious because there are some actual people here that are saying, oh, it could be the United States, it could be Russia. What does I just don't know what Russia would gain if they did it, what the United States would gain if they did it. But I will say that Russia's already shown inclination to weaponize that pipeline. Oh, we have to do maintenance. It has to go down for a little bit. We're going to decrease what we're going to offer to Germany and other European nations. And as you know, because you were there in the Trump administration when Germany was kind of resisting that idea, they're not going to weaponize this. We're going to be okay. Now we're in this position. What are your thoughts on that pipeline? And is this, I would hate to see this as being the trigger for something worse.
Well, you know, we fought the Nord Stream pipeline when I was at the United Nations, and we were furious at all of the Europeans for allowing Germany to get into this situation, and now they're certainly paying the price for it. The United States had no reason to blow up that pipeline. Putin knows that. He's going to do that because he's trying to distract. Why would we blow up a pipeline that gives energy to our allies? That's not the case. Russia, very much having dealt with them, the way they would look at this is, if they blew up the pipeline, no one could blame them for not getting the energy to the Europeans. They knew Nord Stream was never going to come back up. They knew that we weren't going to do anything with it. So this was just trying to show their might and see if they could distract some. I mean, the reality is Putin has fallen really far. You look at the fact that when he's getting drones from Iran and he's getting rockets from North Korea, the fact that they've raised their draft age in Russia to 65, they've lost over a dozen generals. He's lost the faith of his people. He's lost the faith of his military. He knows he's in a world of hurt, and Ukraine is continuing to be, real defenders of their country. And, what I've said is this is not a war about Ukraine. This is a war about freedom. And it's a war we have to win. We don't need to be giving Ukraine blank checks. I don't believe in that. But we do need to get with NATO and make sure they have the defense equipment they need to win this war. Because if they don't, Russia won't stop with Ukraine. Then they'll go into Poland and the Baltics, and then you've got a NATO country, and that's going to be an all-out war.
So that would be.
This is trying to prevent bad things from happening. You got to give it to the Ukrainians. They've shown real passion, real inspiration, real patriotism. I'm inspired by that because that used to be us. We used to fight for our country like that. We used to defend our country like that. And now you've got all of this national self-loathing that's killing us.
Yeah, we're talking with Nikki Haley, who has a great new book out, and we're going to get to that here in just a second. You brought up Ukraine because there's been a lot of discussion. I never ever thought, I did not have Lindsey Graham arguing with Elon Musk on my 2022 bingo card. Not something that I had. It's very interesting to see. I wish they'd pick up the phone and talk to each other, because I think that sometimes those conversations, let's finalize the details so that, it doesn't create more openings for the left to come at the right. But I will say I was a little surprised at the way that he reacted. Musk had proposed something that made me think, it seems like an issue of independence versus territory or something in that regard. What do you make of the idea that it seems like there's two options there? Either there's some kind of negotiation for peace, whatever that looks like, and without that, I'm not quite sure if we're going to be able to avoid. It seems like right now we're going up to the line of belligerence, but going over it and this spilling into something that it takes up the entire world that we would definitely not want to see. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, keep in mind that Putin is threatening and he's trying to scare countries because he wants to make sure that he gains more ground. So what we shouldn't do is run. What we should do is put our foot on the gas and tell him that if he in any way uses nuclear weapons, there'll be hell to pay, not just from us, but from all the NATO allies. Then the second thing we need to do is we need to be going to China and Iran saying, are you okay with him making these threats? Do you actually think this is okay? And put the pressure on them, because they will be the ones that back Russia down. At the end of the day, when it comes to the territory issue, I don't think the United States needs to make the decision on what peace looks like. This is about the Ukrainians and their country. What I will say to people is anyone that says, oh, they should just give this territory or give that territory, assume that this was the United States and someone took Texas. Would we just give up Texas? We wouldn't. We'd fight to make sure our country was whole. That's what the Ukrainians are doing. That's up to them. At some point, they'll make a decision on whether they want to do a negotiation or not. I just don't think it's our place to get involved in that conversation. I think they need to decide it, and whatever they do, we'll certainly support it.
Do you think that they would have already have negotiated a peace deal if they had not had such support from the West?
That's an interesting question. The idea that they needed to win, they needed other countries to help them win, and they certainly couldn't have done it without the West. So, it's interesting. But again, I am one that thinks that we should fight for freedom and democracy wherever we can. That doesn't mean we should put troops on the ground, and that doesn't mean we should write blank checks, but we should support any country that's fighting for their sovereignty.
Yeah. And I think with Texas, and is a very interesting comparison to Texas, because I don't know that we would have to rely so much, though, on foreign power. Though, if we had to prosecute anything like that, I don't know if it would be exactly the same. But I'm with you. I do think that it's something they have to come to a decision as to what that looks like for them, and that's a big decision.
The point of that is we wouldn't want any country telling us what we should do.
Right.
And so that's what Ukraine's saying is, don't tell us what we should do. We'll figure this out. They want peace as much as anybody. But I think it's more of that, I think when other countries start telling countries what they should want, it's always a mistake.
Comes along with the billions that they get, though, I will say. I always like to joke that if I give you my money, I'm giving you my 2 cents and my 2 cents. So it's kind of goes along with it. I want to ask you about this book. We're talking with Nikki Haley. If you want something done, ask a woman. It is a book about leadership lessons from bold women. You got a lot of really fantastic examples in this book. Tell me why this book and why now, although I do love it. And why do they always seem to be conservative? Just, curious.
So, the publisher had been asking me a while to do this book because they said there were lots of books on men and there were very few books on women. And so what I thought about is when I was younger, growing up in a small rural town in South Carolina, 2,500 people, I didn't see any women leaders. And so I would go to the library, and in second grade, the books that I would get would be on first ladies, because those were the only books that they had. And I loved seeing how they partnered with their husbands, and I loved seeing how they worked behind the scenes. And so, when it came to this book, I thought, I should do it because I want women to realize these were ordinary women that became extraordinary because they put in the hard work and they proved they deserve to be in the room. Women aren't victims. We don't want to be treated as victims. When given the opportunity, women work hard, they know it's about results, and they finish the job and they do it well. And these are 10 stories of women who didn't have it easy. You had somebody like Margaret Thatcher who said, you want to take on the hard stuff because that's when you do the most meaningful. And as much as she believed in Britain, she believed in herself and trusted herself. You had people like Virginia Walden Ford. Here was someone who lived in a crime-ridden area in Washington, D.C., desperately wanted her children to get a good education. The public schools were horrible. And she fought for school choice. But what was amazing about her, Dana, was she was terrified of public speaking. Yet she went and she got school choice done for her, thousands of other children. She testified before Congress. She made a real difference in the world.
God equips the called, for sure.
You have to go, you've got somebody like Wilma Rudolph. She had polio, wore braces on her legs until the age of 12. And then in 8th grade decided to try and start running and ended up being the first woman to bring home 3 gold medals in an Olympics.
Yeah.
It's sheer will.
I love these stories.
Women.
This is part of American heritage. I love it. The book is If You Want Something Done, Ask a Woman. Nikki Haley, we'd love to have you back. Thanks so much for your time today. Congrats on the book, too, as well. I know we'll be talking again soon. Thank you.